I didn't expect her to say it like that. Not in that quiet, almost amused way, like the words were lighter than what they carried. She doesn't have to know, she said, and smiled, a small, deliberate curve of the lips that stayed just long enough to make everything else in the room fade. It was Tuesday, late afternoon, the kind that feels heavier than it should. The light from the front window of the auto shop slanted across the concrete floor, catching dust in gold streaks. The fan above my head turned too slowly to matter. I'd been working on her car, an older silver Volvo that smelled faintly of leather and perfume that didn't belong in a place like this. She stood a few steps away, watching me work. Not impatiently. Just watching. Her arms were folded, not in defense, but like she was holding herself still, waiting for something to happen that even she couldn't name. I'd seen her before twice, maybe 3 times. Always near closing hours, always with the same calm confidence that made people move out of her way without realizing it. She was maybe mid-40s, though there was something about her that made the number irrelevant. Everything she did seemed measured, like she'd learned not to rush years ago. When she spoke, it was never loud. "Do you always stay this late?" she asked. I wiped my hands on a rag. Someone's gotta finish what the others start. That made her smile, not at the joke, but at the effort behind it. "I suppose that's true," she said, her tone soft but distant, like she was somewhere else for a moment. I wanted to ask more. About her. About why she kept coming here herself instead of sending someone else. About the ring she still wore, though it looked like it hadn't been touched in a long time. But I didn't. I just tightened a bolt that didn't need tightening and nodded like I was too focused to talk. The air between us felt heavier now, not uncomfortable, just charged in a way I couldn't explain. She stepped closer, her heels making that small echo that sounds louder in empty spaces. "I don't want him to know it was scratched again," she said suddenly. "He'll think I can't park." I looked up, surprised. "Your husband?" "Something like that." And then came the smile, small, unbothered, slightly sad at the edges. "He doesn't have to know," she repeated, and for some reason, I couldn't think of anything to say. Her voice carried that kind of calm that only people who've already broken something once can manage. I watched her trace her fingers along the side mirror, a gesture so slow it almost looked tender. "You can buff it out?" she asked. "Yeah. It'll look new." She nodded. "Good." A pause. "You're very careful with details." That shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. Maybe because no one had said that to me before, not like it was something worth noticing. She left a few minutes later. I watched her through the dusty glass as she adjusted her sunglasses and stepped into the light. The scent of her perfume lingered long after the door shut. When I finally looked down, I realized I was still holding the rag, twisted tight in my hand. That night, I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Just a customer. Just a line about a scratch. Just a smile. But lying in bed later, I kept replaying that moment, the exact way she'd looked at me when she said it, the pause before the word no, like she was daring me to ask what she really meant. I didn't. And yet, I haven't stopped thinking about it since, long enough for the shop to go back to its usual rhythm, radio murmuring old songs, engines humming in half-silence, but not long enough for me to stop glancing at the door whenever I heard heels on concrete. She came in just before noon this time, wearing a gray cardigan that looked softer than anything that belonged in a repair shop. The Volvo again. Same careful way she parked, same faint scent that lingered long after she stepped out. "It's making a noise," she said, handing me the keys. "It probably isn't serious." She sounded tired, not just from the day, but from something older. I could hear it hiding behind her even tone. "Do you want to wait inside?" I asked. She hesitated. If you don't mind. I didn't. She took a seat near the counter, crossing one leg over the other. Her movements were practiced, graceful, but her hands told a different story. She kept folding and unfolding them, like she didn't know where to put them. I noticed faint impressions on her ring finger, like the skin there had learned to remember pressure that wasn't there anymore. I worked in silence for a while, pretending to focus on the car, but my attention kept drifting back. The way she sat, straight-backed, chin slightly down, looked like a defense. The kind people build slowly, after too many small disappointments. She caught me looking once. Not with surprise, just a quiet knowing. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Just trying to guess the noise," I lied. Her lips curved. "And what did you guess?" "That it's not really about the car." For a second, I thought I'd said too much. Her eyes flickered, and she looked away toward the window. "You shouldn't guess about things you can't fix," she said softly. It wasn't harsh, just honest. The kind of line that stays. I nodded and went back to tightening bolts that didn't need it. The silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. It was full of all the things neither of us was supposed to say. After a while, she spoke again, quieter. "You remind me of someone I used to know." He used to listen like that, without interrupting. I didn't know what to do with that. "Was he someone important?" I asked. She smiled, but her eyes didn't join in. "He thought he was." The words hung there, soft but sharp. I could feel the ache underneath, the kind of regret that hides in practiced smiles. When I finished, I told her the car was fine. She stood, brushing invisible dust from her sleeve. For a moment, her hand reached for the counter, almost steadying herself, then she stopped, withdrawing it like the movement had revealed too much. "Thank you," she said, her voice quieter than before. "Any time," I replied. She paused at the door, hand on the handle, then turned slightly, just enough to meet my eyes. "Try not to guess too much," she said. The door clicked behind her. And still, for the rest of the day, I couldn't stop hearing that last line, not as a warning, but as an invitation she didn't mean to give. The rain had been falling for hours, steady, patient, the kind that blurs everything outside the shop windows into shapes and shadows. Most people had already gone home. I was closing up when her car pulled in, wipers cutting slow arcs through the downpour. She stepped out holding a small umbrella that barely helped. The cardigan from last time was replaced with a navy coat, damp at the shoulders. Her hair stuck slightly to her cheek, and for a second, she didn't move, just looked at me through the glass door, uncertain, like she wasn't sure if she should have come. "I didn't mean to show up this late," she said when I opened the door. Her voice was low, the kind that fits better in quiet places. "The headlights flicker sometimes." "It's fine," I said. "You can wait inside while I check." The storm made the air smell metallic. I worked quickly, pretending the job was more complicated than it was, because she was sitting close, on the stool by my desk, tracing circles on a paper cup of coffee I'd poured for her. "You're always here," she said after a while. "So are you," I replied without thinking. She looked up, that small pause before her smile again, but softer this time. "You noticed." I wanted to tell her that I noticed everything, the way her hands trembled just before she steadied them, how she always avoided talking about where she'd been before she came here. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, "Do you ever sleep?" She let out a quiet laugh. "Not much lately." Then, after a pause, "Sometimes silence feels heavier than noise." I knew what she meant. We sat there, listening to the rain drumming against the roof, the sound filling the spaces where our words didn't reach. The phone on her lap buzzed, once, twice. She didn't pick up. I caught a glimpse of the screen lighting up her face, a name, then another, then the same name again. Her expression didn't change, but her grip on the cup tightened. "You can answer," I said. She shook her head. "Not right now." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't empty either. It felt like standing on the edge of something without looking down. When I told her the car was fine, she didn't move right away. Her eyes drifted to the window, to the rain sliding down the glass like something trying to find its way back. "Do you ever wish you'd met someone at a different time?" she asked suddenly. My hands froze. "Yeah," I said quietly. "All the time." She looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment, neither of us pretended not to understand. The space between us felt thin, like it could break with one more word. Her phone rang again, louder this time. She exhaled, set the cup down, and stood up slowly. "I should go." I nodded, but my hand brushed hers when I handed her the umbrella, a small, accidental touch that lasted just long enough to feel intentional. She hesitated at the door, turned slightly, lips parting as if to say something. But she didn't. Only a glance, long, unfinished, before she stepped into the rain. She came by after hours again. No appointment this time, no excuse about the car. Just a quiet knock on the glass door when the lights were half off and the rain had started again. I opened it without asking why she was there. She didn't explain either. She just stepped in, shaking the cold off her coat, her hair slightly damp like she'd walked too long before deciding to come. For a while, neither of us said anything. She leaned against the counter, eyes on the floor, tracing invisible lines on the metal edge with her finger. "I couldn't stay home tonight," she said finally. I nodded. "Rough day?" Her laugh came out tired. "It's been a rough few years." Something about the way she said it made me step, pretending to tidy up. I sat on the stool across from her, waiting for her to keep going. She didn't. She just stood there, letting the silence stretch until it almost became a language. When she finally looked at me, her eyes were unreadable. "Doesn't this feel strange to you?" "Strange how?" "All of it." Her voice was low but steady. "Me showing up here like this. You not asking questions. The way we talk." I swallowed, not trusting my voice yet. "Yeah," I said. "It does." She exhaled slowly. "Then why do we keep doing it?" That question landed harder than I expected. I wanted to tell her I didn't know, but I did. I just didn't have a way to say it that wouldn't make something break. Instead, I said, "Because it feels honest." Her gaze flickered. "Honest?" "Yeah. Like nothing else does." The words hung there, sharp and quiet. She looked away, fingers tightening around the edge of the counter. "Honesty can be dangerous," she said. "Especially when there's nowhere to put it." I wanted to tell her she was wrong. That maybe we didn't need to put it anywhere, maybe it was enough just to let it exist for a while. But she was watching me again, and I couldn't lie. "Do you ever think about leaving?" I asked. Her expression softened, something in it breaking. "Every day," she whispered. "But then I remember what's waiting if I do, and what I'd ruin if I don't." We sat there in the hum of the rain, both of us too close to things we shouldn't name. I stood to pour her some coffee, just to move, just to do something that wasn't feeling this much. When I handed her the cup, our fingers touched again, that same careful, unspoken mistake. She didn't pull away this time. Her eyes stayed on mine, steady, unreadable, almost pleading. "What are we doing?" she asked, voice barely above a breath. I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came. There wasn't a word for it, not love, not loneliness, not whatever lived in the silence between us. She looked down, whispering more to herself than to me. "I don't know how to stop." She walked in, hair wind-tossed, eyes red in a way that wasn't from the cold. I noticed the absence of her car before I noticed the envelope in her hand, small, creased, held too tightly. She didn't speak right away. Just sat on the same stool, staring at the floor like the room had changed since she'd last been here. I wasn't sure I should come, she said finally. I set the wrench down. I'm glad you did. That made her smile, briefly, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes but still tries to. You say that too easily. I mean it, I said. She looked at me for a long moment, then held up the envelope. I found this while cleaning a drawer I shouldn't have opened. I waited. It's a letter, she said. From someone I almost left my husband for. Years ago. The words landed softly, but they rearranged the air between us. I didn't know you were married, I said quietly. I was, she corrected. He passed away last year. The room seemed smaller suddenly, the ticking of the clock louder. I couldn't tell if she was confessing or grieving, or both. I didn't love him the way I should have, she continued. And I keep wondering if that makes me cruel. She placed the envelope on the counter between us like it weighed more than it should. The man who wrote this, he used to say I was the only person who ever looked at him without wanting something. I thought I'd forgotten what that felt like. She stopped there, breathing through the pause. Then I met you. The words came quietly, without pretense. Not romantic, just painfully honest. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe for a second. All the noise of the shop, the rain outside, the hum of the fridge, fell away until it was just her voice and that envelope between us. I wanted to ask what she meant, but part of me already knew. There was something in the way she looked at me now, half regret, half recognition. Like she'd seen this scene before in another life and couldn't believe she was standing in it again. I don't want to repeat the same mistake, she said. But I don't know if walking away would make it better, or just emptier. I reached for the envelope, not to open it, just to touch it. The paper was soft, the edges frayed, as if it had been read too many times. Did you ever write back? I asked. She shook her head slowly. No. I never even told him goodbye. There was a long pause, and then she said, barely above a whisper, you look like him when you think you're hiding something. I froze, not sure if I should be flattered or afraid. She smiled faintly, eyes glassy but calm. That's the problem, she said. You remind me of everything I never said. And before I could answer, she turned the envelope toward me, not offering it, just letting it rest there. Maybe it's time someone else reads it. She came by the next evening without warning, no umbrella this time, no letter. Just herself, tired, lighter somehow, as if she'd already made peace with whatever would happen next. The shop was almost dark. Only the desk lamp and the soft hum of rain against the roof filled the space. I didn't move when she entered, I just watched her cross the floor like she'd done it 100 times before. You read it? I asked. She nodded. Twice. Then, after a pause, it didn't hurt like I thought it would. I leaned back against the counter. That's good. She half smiled. No, it's not. It means I've been numb for too long. Silence again, the kind that doesn't demand to be filled. I could hear her breathing, soft, unsteady, like she was holding something inside she didn't trust the air with yet. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. I kept thinking about what you said, that this feels honest. I hated how much that stayed with me. I met her eyes. Why? Because honesty is supposed to make things clearer, she said. But you just made everything harder to forget. I wanted to tell her I felt the same, that every word, every glance, had become something I carried home and tried to bury under noise. But we were past confessions now. This wasn't about wanting each other. It was about recognizing something that had already taken root. She walked closer, stopping just in front of me. The air between us hummed with everything unsaid. I could smell the faint trace of rain on her coat, the warmth of her breath when she exhaled. "I don't know what this is," she said. "Me neither. But it doesn't feel wrong," she whispered. Her hand lifted, hesitated, then rested lightly on my arm. Not a touch that asked for more, just one that said I'm here. I didn't move away. We stood like that for a while, just breathing in the same space. Her thumb brushed against my sleeve once, a small, unconscious motion that said more than any sentence could. She looked up, eyes glistening in the dim light. "I keep waiting for the part where one of us says the wrong thing and ruins it." "Maybe it already happened," I said softly. "Then why does it still feel like this?" I didn't have an answer. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe some things were only meant to exist in the spaces between reason and restraint, where the rules thin out and silence says enough. Outside, thunder rolled far away. She didn't flinch. "I shall go," she murmured. "Yeah." But neither of us moved. Her hand stayed on my arm. Mine found hers, carefully, just for a second. The warmth there felt fragile, real, undeserved. She finally stepped back, exhaling slowly. "If I come back tomorrow," she said, almost smiling, "don't ask me why." She turned toward the door, her reflection rippling faintly in the glass, and before she stepped out, she added quietly, "You already know." And then she was gone. Leaving the shop too quiet, too full, like she'd taken nothing, but left everything behind. The Volvo's still parked in the corner of the lot. She left it here the week before she moved away. Said it wasn't worth fixing anymore. I still start it every few weeks, just to keep it alive. Sometimes I wonder if that's what we were doing all along, keeping something alive that shouldn't have been, just because letting it die felt worse. The shop feels different now. Same humming lights, same oil-stained floor, same smell of rain when it hits the metal roof, but it's quieter in a way I can't fix. I still catch myself turning when the door opens, half expecting her voice to fill the space again. It never does. She left a note on the counter that night. Nothing dramatic, just one line, written in her careful, deliberate handwriting. "Thank you for reminding me what it feels like to be seen." I didn't realize until later that she'd left the ring beside it. The one she used to turn absent-mindedly when she talked. I didn't touch it for weeks. When I finally did, it felt colder than I remembered, like it had waited too long to be held. People say some connections aren't meant to last, only to shift something inside you. I think that's what she did. She didn't change my life in some movie way. She didn't rescue me or ruin me. She just showed up, and for a while, everything felt more real than it had any right to be. I don't think what we had was love, not in the way most people mean it. It was something quieter, older, almost sacred in its restraint. It taught me that intimacy isn't always about touch. Sometimes it's the pause before words, the knowing glance, the shared silence that lingers long after someone's gone. She told me once that honesty can be dangerous when there's nowhere to put it. Maybe she was right. But I think some truths are worth holding, even if they never find a home. Now, on certain evenings, when the light hits the shop just right, I can still see her standing there, half in shadow, half in gold, smiling like she already knew how it would end. And for a moment, it doesn't hurt. It just feels like remembering something that mattered. Maybe that's all love really is, the gentle proof that for a little while, you and someone else were alive in the same truth. So I keep the car, and the ring, and the note. Not as relics. Just as reminders that something real once happened, quietly, imperfectly, but real. And every time I start that engine, I think of her voice, low and steady, saying, "He doesn't have to know." Only now I understand, it was never about who she meant. It was about what we both kept hidden, even from ourselves. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?